World War II!
World War II!
With almost 2 million visitors every year, Pearl Harbor is one of the most visited places in Hawaii. Although typically referred to as a single entity, Pearl Harbor is actually a collection of historical sites. If you've seen the movie Pearl Harbor, you probably have an idea of what the attack itself looked like. I think the way that women and relationships are depicted in that movie are highly problematic. But the reenactment of the attack, I have to confess, was pretty moving, and from what I understand, more or less accurate. Japanese planes bombed Pearl Harbor in a surprise attack, sinking the Arizona and trapping about 1,000 people inside. If you watched this movie and you didn't cry during the attack scene, then I'm very sorry that you have no soul. Visiting the Arizona is the most somber site at Pearl Harbor. When people say that they want to visit Pearl Harbor, I suspect they mean visiting the Arizona Memorial. But that's just the tip of the iceberg. You can also tour a submarine, go inside of it and walk around. The ship that's there is the Bowfin, which wasn't at the site of the attack like the Arizona was, but it did fight during World War II and was nicknamed the Pearl Harbor Avenger, so it's fitting that her permanent home is here in Hawaii. Walking through the submarine can be a bit small, so those uncomfortable with tight spaces should probably sit this one out.
1.5 Susans wide.
The Pacific Fleet Submarine Museum, which, it is worth noting, is on land, includes pretty kick-ass exhibits. I know they're interesting because I toured the museum after having already spent the previous 7 hours touring other sites, so it must be pretty good to keep me that interested. The Aviation Museum has a bunch of artifacts, a flight simulator for those with strong stomachs, and a whole bunch of planes. Planes upon planes upon planes. If you're a military plane enthusiast, you'll probably feel right at home. If not, this hangar may be a bit monotonous. Visiting the USS Missouri would be a positive note to end the day on. You can stand on the deck of the ship that Japan officially surrendered on, and there's a commemorative plaque designating the exact spot. History buffs would probably enjoy the artifacts and exhibits on the deck, and Navy aficionados will have fun exploring the rest of the ship. Visiting Pearl Harbor takes a lot of planning. If you'd like to visit the Arizona Memorial, you need to get your tickets well in advance. 8 weeks, or 56 days in advance, to be specific. Additional tickets for the next day will also go on sale on recreation.gov right at 3 p.m. local time, but they go quickly, so you have to be ready right at 3. There is a standby line that moves very, very slowly in the hot sun, but if you're in line before 9 a.m. and are willing to wait 2 or 3 hours, you have a decent chance of getting in. Feel free to drop off a friend you don't really like here while you go off and explore. The tickets for everything else besides the Arizona can be purchased on site. If you're a military member and you bring your HAAWK with you, you can get a discount for everyone visiting your party. If you're local, you can get the same discount, but just for yourself. You should know that the tickets are a bit pricey. Visiting the Missouri will clock in at $35 for a single adult ticket.
Bunk, bunk, bunky, bunk, bunk.
The Aviation Museum will be another $26, and the Submarine Museum and Tour is $22. The audio tour for the Arizona is an additional $8. The ticket that is featured on the Pearl Harbor website is the Passport package, which includes all of the tickets except the Arizona, for $90. This is also the deal that's heavily advertised in big letters above the ticket booth, so most people end up picking it. If you do the math though, you end up getting a big whopping savings of $1 compared to buying all the tickets separately. So just get the tickets for what you want and don't be lured by the illusion of a deal. When I visited, we got everything except the audio tour, because I had a friend with a PhD in World War II history visiting with me at the time.
World War II!
And she was my audio tour. Not everyone has a Susan though, so the audio tour might be worth it. The booth setup is somewhat confusing, so I'll briefly break it down. There are 3 giant booths when you first enter the site. The booth on the far left is where you pick up your Arizona tickets. I know the big sign above it says you can buy tickets, but you cannot buy tickets there. The blue awning on the far right is where you purchase your tickets for all of the other sites. You will see that you can buy the USS Arizona Memorial self-guided narrated tour, but do not be fooled. It's actually the audio tour for the Arizona and does not mean that you'll get a ticket. Even before the booths, though, the first thing that you'll notice when you walk up to the security gate is that you can't bring your purse with you. No purses, backpacks, fanny packs, diaper bags, or camera bags. Strollers also aren't allowed at most of the sites. There's a bag check for $6 to $10 depending on the size of your bag. There's often a wait to drop off your bag at the bag check though, so if you can, wear lots of pockets and avoid the line altogether. If you carry around a water bottle, there are refilling stations throughout Pearl Harbor. Some of them are kind of hidden though, so it's like a fun scavenger hunt game. And the prize is water! As far as what to wear besides pockets, it's very normal most of the time in Hawaii to wear swimwear going about your daily errands, but since it's a memorial, probably best to wear a shirt. Slippers, aka flip-flops or sandals, are allowed, but if you're walking around a ship, you might want something with laces. When I visited most recently, we spent probably 8.5 hours there looking at the different museums.
Can I become a ship's librarian?
No.
No.
It was a little overwhelming, and some were definitely more worth it than others, especially for the $90 price point. So learn from my mistakes, and I'll tell you what we should have done.
On a boat.
I would start the day on the Arizona, so I would suggest getting an early entry time. Budget about an hour for this site. Past security, get your tickets, and then turn left. You'll see a big long line of sad people in the standby line. Offer them your pity, and then make your way to the shorter line for people with tickets. Once you're back, you'll feel inspired and sad, and that's a good time to hit up the free museum. It's right by the entry to the Arizona. If you know absolutely nothing about World War II, then it would make sense to go through the whole thing from start to finish. It was a little cramped, and I think all the cool stuff was at the end, so I would personally recommend only popping your head to the end. Save your brain for a more fulfilling museum in a little bit. What's cool about the free museum, though, is that it has the original draft of FDR's A Day That Will Live in Infamy speech. I dorked out hard over this. You can see that originally, he wasn't even going to say infamy. That was a last-minute scribble. So cool. The other really cool exhibit right at the end is all about Japanese propaganda during the war. This big model, again right at the end, behind glass has a 3D tactile representation, so I thought that was very thoughtful. I would suggest hitting up the sub next. I think this museum is overall the most well done on the site. It's thoughtful and preemptively answers questions that you didn't even realize you had. What are those little symbols on the flag? Well, let me tell you. So yes, overall, very cool. Your ticket also gives you free reign to tour a submarine itself. It's neat to do a walkthrough and see what it looks like down there. The big takeaway for me is that there's no personal space. The torpedo guys sleep in pull-out beds with the torpedoes. The bathrooms are cozy. If you can, definitely go with someone who's more into it than you are. Watching Susan joyfully freak out over everything was itself worth the price of admission.
Actually says
I'm sure she would be willing to give you a personal tour as well if you sponsor her airfare from the mainland. The big standout for me was when Susan said,
"Don't get a picture of me. You're too close. Get the gun in it."
From there, I would probably call it a day and go get food because I turn into a hungry hippo. There is food on site, but Restaurant 604 is right down the road, and that will be infinitely better. The Missouri is cool, but touring 2 ships in one day can be a bit monotonous. Plus, the logistical hassle of waiting in line for a bus to take you there and back. You would also have to wait for a bus to bring you to the Aviation Museum, which I would say is almost certainly not worth the price of admission.
another issue. So is it still on the island, or is it here? Because this verb tense and the use of the word since implies that it is still there. This is why verb tenses are important.
The artifacts are confusingly labeled, and unless you're really into planes, it probably would not be your cup of tea.
I, as somebody who professionally makes maps about World War II and post-war military history, emphatically state that this is a terrible map. The legend does not match what's actually happening on the map.
I would say that visiting Pearl Harbor is definitely worth the effort, so long as you plan ahead and decide before you go which sites are worth spending your time and money on. My suggested itinerary of the Arizona, Free Museum, and Submarine, I think, gives you the most bang for your buck. It may take 2 or 3 hours, depending on how much of a history nerd you are, and will only set you back $22. Compare that to the passport price of $90, and I've saved you $78. You're welcome. I hope this guide has been at least somewhat informative. Let me know how it goes.